So for today's video, I did want to kind of look back at the Universe 6 tournament arc and kind of just in preparation for Hit's return. It's been a while since I watched a lot of these episodes, as I'm sure it has been for a lot of you guys as well. But I did want to kind of look back and kind of just reminisce upon what became the Universe 6 / Champa tournament arc. So basically, to kind of start things off, that was the arc that everybody said would be the one that kind of saved Super. It was the arc that everybody said would be where Super basically starts, because everybody kind of got in their heads you can kind of disregard the first couple of arcs, which I still generally just don't agree with, because they do kind of weave into what becomes a Universe 6 tournament arc. I mean, at the very least, just because of how the Resurrection F stuff was executed, I'd say that you could skip that entirely, but that's neither here nor there. Basically, that arc, it was interesting. I think that it was a little bit better watching it on a week-to-week basis, especially when the hype was high, because whenever we got out of the Resurrection F stuff, because once again, the Battle of God stuff wasn't terrible, at least in my opinion. Some people didn't really care for it. I thought it was at least bearable, but I'll flat out say that the Resurrection F stuff was just not bearable. It was just really, really horribly done, to be honest. No sugarcoating. It was just really bad. So whenever we got around episode 26, I believe is when the Universe 6 stuff starts, everybody was like, man, finally, we're about to move on. We're about to meet these new characters, because it was promotional art. That promotional art where they had like Hit, Magetta, Botamo, Cabba, all those guys lined up. Like all that stuff. The hype was real. Toei was promoting it. The next arc, I believe they even had like a Hit statue and all that stuff. So looking at it on a week-to-week basis, it was like, oh, this is so awesome. But looking at it in hindsight as a whole, because I never really did like an arc review or anything like that, I feel like it underperformed, and here's why. There was opportunities in there for them to expound upon some of these characters that they really didn't do. For example, we still know nothing about Botamo. He's not really like a main cast member or anything like that. He's obviously not very popular because they don't too much care about him. It was nice to see him in the baseball episode, but he was in one episode for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. And they never really touched on him. The only characters that they really kind of gave any sort of context to in the slightest, I'd say, were probably Cabba and Frost. And Frost was a cop-out because Frost basically became Frieza again. And, kind of speaking of Frost, he's probably my least favorite character from that whole entire squad, because you look at him and you're like, oh, okay, well, initially they said he's a good guy. And I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, seeing a Frieza race character, shout out to Xenoverse, because he looks like a Xenoverse created character anyway. You probably can make him pretty easily. Shameless plug, I do have videos on how to create stuff for my channel. Go check those out. Anyways, it's like he's a good version of Frieza, so it was a cool concept. But then in the next episode, they're like, oh, never mind. Or the next couple episodes, they're like, oh, never mind, he's still a bad guy. All Friezas everywhere are bad guys. So it totally shat on itself. And then Cabba was cool too, because he's a Universe 6 Saiyan. I mean, we kind of assumed he was a Saiyan due to the hairstyle and stuff like that from the promotional art. And I think that Cabba was a cool concept as well, especially when it came down to him fighting Vegeta, because Vegeta kind of took him under his wing, and it was cool seeing him once again in the baseball episode. This is where I kind of got this from, seeing those characters in the baseball episode. He was like, oh, senpai, this is my chance, and he totally struck out. But, it was cool with Cabba too, and Hit's obviously the most hyped up character from that whole squad. He's obviously the most popular one. That's why he's coming back in the next arc, and all these different things. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't really get much explainers for Hit either. We didn't learn much about him, so I'm hoping that I'm going to reserve my judgment on that, because I'm hoping that maybe they'll expand upon him in this upcoming arc. So I'm going to reserve my judgment for the Hit character, but just solely in that arc, he was a cool character. Basically the only things we really knew about him was that he was an assassin. He's really old. He's never had to fight at full power. He also couldn't fight at full power during that tournament because he had to hold back. And we also learned that he basically is a massive prodigy. He improves exponentially throughout the course of a fight, which is a trope that they kind of extend over to Goku Black, but I digress. So I do think that there was a lot of room for opportunity there. Honestly, my personal favorite was Magetta, because Magetta is such a different type of character. A metal man that spits lava? What? He can't fly? What is this guy? He's such a different type of character. He's built like a furnace. I really wish that they would have talked more about them. I mean, they did kind of say, oh, there's a planet of metal men, and apparently there's one in Universe 7, but apparently our archives have been proven to be stupid repeatedly in this show, in Dragon Ball Super, so apparently they didn't know about it, if I recall correctly. And I thought that Magetta was a good idea and a good character, and I did enjoy his fight with Vegeta as well, but, I feel like they could have talked about him more and spent a little bit longer expanding upon these characters, because if you look at that arc, it kind of flew by and it went by way too fast. They could have had Goku versus Botamo take up at least 2 episodes, talked about Botamo and stuff like that, and made it a little bit more interesting. Botamo was a throwaway character. They also threw away Majin Buu. I mean, they left him up at the freaking desk the whole time they were fighting. They didn't even bother to bring him down to the freaking spectator area. He was at the damn testing ground. So, they completely shat on Majin Buu, who actually, if you guys were subbed to my channel back then, he's one of the characters that I was actually really hyped to see, like, in this environment, because I thought that it would be awesome to see Majin Buu fighting alongside the good guys in, like, this tournament-based atmosphere, because, he's never really been that way, and he's not a bad guy. He never really was a bad guy in particular. He just he's just naive. He's just young. Well, not really young, but young-minded, you know what I'm saying? So I think that there was a lot of opportunity with that character, too. And don't get me freaking started on missed opportunity. They 100% completely removed Gohan from the tournament arc. They gave a BS reason he had to go to the conference. He basically winds up turning down the job anyway, so that makes him having to go to that conference moot. He could have been there. I mean, I don't know why Super does this thing where they feel the need to completely remove characters. I mean, like, it's one thing to remove Ten Shinhan and Yamcha and those guys and not show them for a while, but to remove a member of the Sun family, Gohan, from the entirety of this arc, and then also to do that to Goten and the entirety of the Goku Black arc is completely unnecessary. Even if they don't have lines, they can sit there. I heard recently that maybe Mosako Nozawa, turned down or asked Toei not to have Gohan in like an episode recently. So maybe she did that then, so she didn't have to voice Gohan character, and maybe she did that for Goten, so she didn't have to voice Black Gohan and Gohan wasn't even in the arc anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have to voice all these parts with Goku Black and the main cast Goku. So I get that if that's the reasoning, but still, it's like you don't have to shit on your own characters that way. I don't know. I think that ultimately the fight scenes were okay. I thought that the Cabba and the Vegeta fight was really good. I thought that was really well done. I did enjoy the mentorship from Vegeta and, kind of expanding upon him and building on this character that they've established for him in Dragon Ball Super, and that he's not, he's not a badass guy. He's lighthearted. He tries to put up a front. He's just not the same character that he was in Dragon Ball Z. I do think that he's had some of the best character progression in the show, and that honestly was a big chunk of it. His interaction with Cabba, he's like, remember this pain, you could become stronger, just train and all that stuff. And you never seen Vegeta in that atmosphere, not even with Trunks at that point in the series. So like, it was awesome seeing that too. It was cool getting the suspense of seeing Goku maybe be out, but obviously they made that moot again because they allowed him to come back. It was also cool seeing Piccolo come in and strategize against Frost, who's probably a lot stronger than he was. So like, they had a lot of cool things in there. But I feel like they continually shout on themselves, like how Piccolo basically wins and Vegeta forces him to disqualify himself. That wasn't necessary. You could at least made Piccolo fight again. And how Vegeta basically one-shots, 3 opponents? He comes in, knocks out Frost, he knocks out Magetta, he knocks out Cabba, and then he's used as the trope for Hit, so Goku can beat Hit. And speaking of Goku versus Hit, I thought that was a freaking phenomenal fight. My favorite part of that was when they played the freaking, I think it was the Chozetsu Dynamic theme song during the fight too, and it was like, oh, this is lit, and Goku's Kaioken times 10, and it's all that. That was awesome, just freaking setup and great choreography and everything like that. That whole fight was great. It didn't make much sense how Goku could outspeed a time stop, but at the same time, we don't know anything about Hit's ability anyway, because like I said, they didn't really talk about him too much. So it's like, I feel like the arc, okay, let me say this. I feel like the arc had so many cool things that it kind of fell flat on its face. You look at it and say, okay, it was too fast. It didn't do what it needed to do. Let me restate that. It did what it needed to do if all it needed to do was bring back interest to the series. But that wasn't even solely on the arc. It was based on promotion and all that stuff. And basically, the freaking hype was enormous getting out of the freaking Resurrection F arc. Everybody was ready. Everybody was ready to where they honestly could do no wrong in that portion of time. There was nothing they could do that could have made that not a good thing because you were out of the old content and into the new. So they really had everything handed to them. But I do feel like, once again, kind of just wrapping it up, the main issue that I had with that whole arc, the entirety of the arc is, and I said this from the second that we were revealed the plot of the arc, okay? I said this before even people like Dino and all these other people, really knew this or noticed this, I said, and this wasn't, I can't blame anybody. I wasn't really friends with these guys back then, Danny, all these guys. The second we learned the plot, I said, this is stupid. You know why this is stupid? Because there's no fucking tension. It's literally a petty tournament. There's no stakes. There's no tension. So they're going to basically have a tournament for food, for a planet, so Champa could get the food if he wins. But at the same time, and even Goku himself points it out in that arc, he says, well, what's the problem if we lose? We're just going to move the Earth over to Universe 6. And that's what I said from day one. As soon as it was revealed, the Earth is just going to transport to Universe 6. And it's not like they're going to die. It's not like anything bad is going to happen. They wouldn't even notice. The people on Earth that weren't there at the tournament grounds wouldn't know what happened. They would not even notice. All that stuff is over their head. So it's like, you had these cool characters, but at the end of the day, it was just a fun little thing, that was self-contained because there was no tension. So I don't know. I've gone on long enough. I do want to know you guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, how you felt about that tournament arc. Once again, this was just me talking about it because I never really did initially anyway, but I do want to kind of talk about these characters because we just saw them recently and we'll be seeing a bit more of Hit, in the upcoming weeks or so. But that's it for me. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.